This man's story is different, though. It's not just about making money, it's about making a change. You see, one day, he came across something that shocked him. A local restaurant, popular in the area, had a problem. The owner was known for being racist. This wasn't just a rumor, it was public. The restaurant owner had made racist comments, treated employees unfairly, and even discriminated against customers. The community was upset. People talked about it. Some wanted to take action, but no one did anything. Not until the rich man heard about it. He couldn't ignore it. He couldn't just let it slide. It wasn't just about a bad business owner. It was about what was right. This wasn't just a story about a man buying a restaurant. This was something much bigger. Something that would change everything. The man had a plan that would teach the owner a lesson, and set an example for everyone who thought they could get away with hate. The owner of the restaurant had built a name for himself too, but not for reasons he should have been proud of. He was known for his rude comments, for the way he treated people who didn't look like him. His reputation was tainted by his racist views. It wasn't a secret. He had made countless remarks, mocking customers based on their skin color, background, and beliefs. People who came to the restaurant were often uncomfortable. They noticed the way the owner treated the staff too. If you weren't white, you could expect to be treated with less respect. The employees were scared to speak up, knowing it could cost them their jobs. But word spread quickly. Soon the restaurant became known as a place where only certain people were welcome. The owner's racist actions didn't just stay within the walls of his business. They spilled out into the community. Many tried to raise their voices. Some complained to the local authorities. Others tried to boycott the restaurant, but it was a tough battle. The restaurant was still packed with customers every day, many of whom seemed unaware or simply indifferent to the owner's behavior. The community was torn. Some still supported the restaurant for its food, while others refused to eat there, seeing it as a symbol of the owner's hate. But the rich man, the one who had built his wealth on fairness and respect, couldn't stand to let this continue. He saw it as a personal challenge. He couldn't ignore the wrong that was happening. The owner had gotten away with his behavior for too long. And that's when the man knew something had to be done. This restaurant wasn't just any business. It was a reflection of the hate that existed in the world, and it needed to be put in its place. When the rich man first heard about the restaurant, he was shocked. He had worked hard to create a business empire built on equality and respect for everyone. To him, this owner's behavior was unacceptable. But it wasn't just about being angry. It was about doing something that would make a real difference. He couldn't stand by while a man like that continued to hurt others. At first, he thought about starting his own restaurant. He could create a place that would be open to all people, where everyone would be treated with kindness and fairness. But then he had another thought. What if he could do something bigger? What if he could take this restaurant, this symbol of hate, and turn it around? The idea grew on him. He wasn't just going to start something new. He was going to take control of this restaurant, buy it, and make sure the racist owner would never run it again. It was a bold plan. But the rich man had the resources. And he had the determination. He wasn't going to let a hateful business owner get away with what he had been doing for years. The more he thought about it, the more he realized this could be a statement. This could show the world that actions like the owner's weren't going to be tolerated anymore. It wasn't just about getting rid of a bad business owner. It was about standing up against racism in every form. He started making calls. He got in touch with people who could help him buy the restaurant. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The owner wasn't going to just hand over his business, and there were plenty of obstacles. The owner had built the restaurant from the ground up, and it was making money. It wasn't just a business. It was his pride. But the rich man didn't care about that. This wasn't about business anymore. This was personal. He began to think of all the things he would change once he owned the restaurant. The staff would be treated with respect. The customers would feel safe. He would remove every trace of the owner's hateful influence. It would be a new beginning for the restaurant and for the community. But the rich man's plan wasn't just about the restaurant itself. It was a message. A message to other business owners, to the community, and to the world. Racism had no place in his world. And it had no place in the world he was going to help build. The rich man wasted no time. He knew that if he wanted to make this happen, he had to act fast. He started by reaching out to the right people, lawyers, real estate agents, and business experts. He wanted to make sure everything was done properly. But quickly, he was determined to get the restaurant into his hands. Negotiating with the owner wasn't easy. The owner wasn't thrilled about the idea of selling his beloved restaurant. He had built it from the ground up, and the thought of losing it to someone he saw as an outsider, someone he thought he could never understand, made him angry. But the rich man was calm. He made the offer. He played it smart. He offered a price the owner couldn't refuse. The owner, while hesitant, knew he had to accept. His restaurant wasn't doing as well as it once had, and he was starting to realize that people weren't just avoiding the restaurant, they were talking about him. And not in a good way. So, after weeks of negotiation, the deal was done. The restaurant was now owned by the rich man. He didn't waste any time after that. He didn't want to wait around. He wasn't going to let the owner stay around for even a moment longer than necessary. The rich man knew that taking over the restaurant was just the first step. He had to make the changes that would not only remove the owner's influence, but also make the place a symbol of everything he stood for. It would be a place where respect, equality, and kindness were the main ingredients. But there was one thing left to do. The owner had to go. It wasn't going to be a soft exit. The rich man didn't want to give him a chance to leave quietly. He wanted to make sure the world knew exactly why the owner was no longer in charge. The moment the owner walked into the restaurant and saw the new changes, he knew something was different. The familiar feel of the place was gone. The old decor had been replaced with something more inviting, more modern. The staff, who had always seemed tense and on edge, were now smiling, talking openly with customers. There was an energy in the air that the owner didn't recognize. At first, he didn't understand what was happening. He thought maybe the rich man was just making some small adjustments, trying to make the place better. But then he noticed the subtle, yet telling changes. Changes that went beyond just the physical space. The restaurant was no longer his. The power had shifted. The rich man had already begun implementing his vision. The owner walked into the office, where he used to have control over everything, only to find it locked and empty. His desk, the one where he had made so many of his decisions, was gone. His first instinct was to fight back. He called the rich man, demanding an explanation. He wasn't about to let this person take away everything he had built. But when the rich man answered the phone, he could hear the calm in his voice. An authority the owner hadn't expected. "We've made some changes," the rich man said, "and it's time for you to leave." The owner didn't take the news well. He tried to argue, tried to claim that he had built the place and that it was his right to keep running it. But the rich man's decision was final. There was no room for debate. The restaurant was now his, and the owner had no say in how it was run. The reality started to set in. The owner's arrogance turned into confusion, then anger. He couldn't understand how someone like the rich man, someone who didn't know the first thing about running a restaurant, could come in and take everything from him. But the rich man's point was clear. It wasn't about business. It wasn't about ownership. It was about the way the owner had treated people. As the owner left the restaurant for the last time, he realized something else. The staff, the customers, the people who had once been afraid of him, were now looking at him differently. There was no respect left for him. His reputation had crumbled, and there was nothing he could do to fix it. And while the rich man watched him go, he knew he had done what needed to be done. The message had been sent. It wasn't just about firing a bad boss. It was about showing the world that racism would never be tolerated, no matter who you were or what business you ran. The moment was tense. The owner stood there, in the middle of the restaurant, staring at the rich man. The realization had hit him hard. This wasn't a discussion. This wasn't an offer to buy him out. The rich man wasn't asking for his cooperation. He was making it clear that it was time for him to leave. The rich man walked up to him calmly, a look of unwavering certainty on his face. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to make a scene. Everything had already been decided. "You're fired," he said simply, his voice firm but controlled. The owner froze, as if the words didn't register at first. He blinked, looking around the room, expecting to hear someone step in, to hear a defense. But there was nothing. The staff, who had been watching from a distance, didn't flinch. They had seen it coming. They knew this was the moment they'd all been waiting for. The owner's face turned red. He stammered, trying to find the right words, but nothing seemed to come out. His hands clenched into fists, but the rich man didn't move. He stood there, unshaken. He had made up his mind. "You can't do this," the owner finally shouted, his voice rising. "I built this place from nothing. It's mine." But the rich man remained calm. "Not anymore. You've lost the right to run it. You've lost the right to be here." His words were clear, and they hit the owner like a punch. He had no more power, no more influence. The restaurant was no longer the owner's kingdom. The rich man was in charge now, and the staff knew it. The owner was just a man who had overstayed his welcome. With that, the rich man turned and walked away, leaving the owner standing there, stunned and defeated. As he watched the staff move in, starting to clean up and prepare for the next customers, the owner realized his time had come to an end. His reign of hate was over, and it was never going to return. With the old owner gone, things began to change, fast. The rich man didn't waste any time. He got to work making the restaurant a place everyone could enjoy, a place where people felt welcome, no matter who they were. The first thing he did was talk to the staff. He made sure they felt safe and respected. He told them they didn't have to worry about being treated unfairly anymore. They could be themselves, work hard, and know they would be appreciated. It wasn't just words, it was a new way of doing business. And the staff felt the difference immediately. Next, he focused on the menu. It wasn't about fancy changes or cutting-edge trends. It was about making sure the food was good, simple, and something everyone could enjoy. The atmosphere started to shift too. Where there used to be tension, there was now laughter. Where there had once been fear, there was now a sense of security. The customers could feel the change the moment they walked in. The community noticed too. Word spread quickly about the new management and the changes taking place. People who had avoided the restaurant for years because of the owner's behavior now felt it was safe to return. And they did, in droves. The rich man didn't just change the restaurant, he changed the way people saw it. It wasn't just a place to eat, it was a place to come together. As the months went by, the restaurant became a hub for the local community. The old owner's legacy of hate faded away, replaced by a new one of acceptance and unity. The rich man had done more than buy a business. He had made a statement, and he had proven that one person can make a huge difference. The restaurant wasn't just surviving now, it was thriving. And the rich man knew that in the end, it was all worth it. He had stood up for what was right, and in doing so, he had created something far more valuable than a successful business. He had created a place where everyone could feel equal, respected, and at home.